Good evening, everyone. My name is Donny Cho, and I am coming to you as the president and a founding member, and also as an experiencer for the organization known as the North American Elvis Project, the newest branch in the field of cryptozoological research and study. Now, a while back, I had done an episode on the cryptid phenomenon known as the Elvis. And I got a fairly strong reaction. There's been a lot of positive feedback in the community, some negative ones as well, because there will be those Elvis deniers who are out there amongst the Bigfoot and Dogman fandom that we unfortunately have to. It's a it's a reality that we have to live with. So during that time, I had received numerous emails and messages over social media from those who have experienced the phenomenon known as the Elvis. And tonight is a very special treat. And for the first session of this newfound organization, the North American Elvis Project, I'm going to bring to you a listener. He reached out to me via email after having listened to my little conversation about the Elvis to reach out and tell me his story, his encounter with the entity known as the Elvis. And as a very special treat for you, ladies and gentlemen, listening at home, I have managed to bring this guest on tonight for our first ever listener encounter for the North American Elvis Project. And his name is Carl, and he comes to us by the way of Lufkin, Texas. He's calling in, and I'm going to bring him. I'm going to bring him on, and we'll be able to speak with Carl and talk about his Elvis sighting. Hello, Carl from Lufkin, Texas. Are you there?
I'm here, Donnie. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just
Good.
wanted to thank you
Good.
very much for reaching out to me, and introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us about yourself.
Well, first, let me. I would like to express my appreciation to you for letting me come on and talk about this. It's. I just appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and to believe me because this has kind of ruined my life in a way. You know.
We are here as a safe space, sir. So yeah, there's no one gonna be here judging you. Just yeah, feel free to speak your mind and tell us your piece.
Well, so I mean, I ain't that long in the tooth, but it was the late '80s, early '90s. It was actually my first job. I'm a putty pig out in Lufkin. Do a lot of
Right.
bondo work and paint and stuff like that. So my first job was in this little gas station back in the day, just outside, between Nacogdoches and Lufkin,
Okay.
and it was owned by this old boy who I I laughed because he looked like Elvis, like he was dressed down Elvis, but he looked like Elvis. He kind of sounded like him. He drove this big old pink Cadillac just like Elvis. I thought, man, this guy is funny. Just he must have been a big Elvis fan.
Wow. Pink
And
Cadillac.
yeah, pink Cadillac, whole 9 yards.
All right.
And I just thought it was funny, right? I just, let's face it, it's the '80s. Guys a little bit older. There's some Elvis fans out there. It is East Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of these good old boys did like themselves some Elvis, and that's all I took it as. I was a kid, my first job. It was fine, and he was a good boy, right? A good guy to work with. And I'll be honest, like don't get me wrong, he definitely looked like Fat Elvis because there was no enchilada that this old boy did not like. He never
Oh,
met a po' boy that he turned down. If you know what I mean.
yeah.
Heck
I
of a nice guy.
So wait, what did he go by when you knew him? Like he wasn't. I'm guessing he wasn't calling himself Elvis. What was he calling
Oh
himself at
no,
that time?
no. He just went by the name of Bob. I don't want to use his last name because
Um.
I don't want to get anybody in no trouble
Hmm.
because of what happened later, obviously.
hmm.
But yeah, he went by Bob. But everyone called him Bubba.
Bobo.
Bubba. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, tell us like what he was like. What was he like to be around to get to know, and what were your impressions of him when you were around him?
Well, he was just a nice guy. Like I said earlier, like he was just a really nice guy. He was very personable, right? And when you talked to you felt like he was being seen, if
Hmm.
you know what I mean. Like he just talked to you. You know, it just impressed himself upon you, but it was like a good way.
Hmm.
Like you felt it, right? You felt it in your soul, but you felt comfortable around the guy. You always did. Very unassuming, always had a friendly smile on his face. He was great with the customers. And he never talked about Elvis or nothing, which I thought was a little weird given, how much he looked like him and the pink Cadillac and all that. I figured that Elvis would be the only thing he'd ever want to talk about.
Hmm.
And yet, he never did. That's fine. I wasn't about to push anything. It was my first job. I was just trying not to get fired, right?
Right.
So, but everybody loved him. And to be honest, it felt like he had way more money than some dude who's just running a little old shop,
Hmm.
just out in the middle of East Texas. Because he's always taking vacations, and he'd bring back stuff from all over the place. Like I know he loved Korea. He always came back with,
Korea.
oh
Really?
yeah, it was weird. Like he
Hmm.
always would go out to South Korea, and he'd talk about how he loves himself, how he loved Korea and Korean food, and I personally I can't see how Korean barbecue could be better or as good as some brisket, but to each his own. He also had a weird recipe for kimchi, I think he called it.
Sir, it's pronounced kimchi. Just,
Oh,
just
kimchi,
FYI. Yes.
kimchi. Okay, yeah, it was pretty good. Uh, but yeah, he always brought back some little doodads and things from Korea, but he really loved it out there for some reason, which I thought was odd that he'd just keep going off to
Hmm.
Korea again. This is a guy who owns a body shop and little gas station in deep East Texas. It just didn't seem like the kind of guy who'd have the money to go off and flirt around the country and the world the way he did, but he did. But again, I that wasn't my thing. I didn't want to get fired.
Hmm.
I was a kid at the time. Again, this is my first job. I just wanted to be, keep my head down, get some experience, maybe find another job later. But I wanted a good reference. I didn't want to push no buttons, and everybody loved him anyhow, and he was a good guy to work with. So I just let it be.
Hmm.
But worked for him for 2 years,
2 years. Wow.
2 years, and then something happened.
Okay. Well, tell us about it.
Hold on, let me spit out some chalk. So I'd worked for him for 2 years. This is like '91 now, right? And he his prize pink Cadillac got all scraped up and banged up, which I thought was odd because he was a real good driver, right? He wasn't out there, wheeling around or nothing, but it got all banged up. Real
Hmm.
something fierce too. He said that the road was slick and he lost control and banged it up against some trees, which I thought was odd because there wasn't any rain the day he brought it in, or even the week before. It was summer, it hadn't even rained. But again, I didn't want to pry, right? And didn't certainly didn't look like no damage I'd ever seen, to be honest. But again, didn't want to pry, so I started working on it, fixing it up, doing. The frame was a little bent, not too bad. I got it pulled back in alignment, and I was working on the Bondo, but there were some parts that we didn't have around. Again, this is 1991 in Lufkin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like we could just get some parts for a Cadillac, at the local shop. We had to order some things in. And again, this is before the internet. So I had to make some calls, and I'll be darned, but I found out that Cadillac weren't no just some pink Cadillac. It was one of Elvis's Cadillacs.
The Elvis?
Yes, I
Wow.
tracked it down, knew some people, and they said, "Hey, this Cadillac. It was actually owned by Elvis, and it had gone missing after his death, so no one knew what had happened to this car."
Hmm.
I was shocked because honestly, Bubba didn't seem like the kind of guy to steal another man's car, much less Elvis's car, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking maybe somebody had sold it to him on the sly who shouldn't have sold it to him, and I didn't know how to bring it up to him. Because again, just a really good guy. You don't want to accuse him of nothing.
Hmm.
So what I did was we got the parts, and I was doing the bondo and the sand, and finally, and worked up the nerve to talk to him. I said, "Bob, gotta ask you a question." He
All
said,
right.
and he was like, "All right, Carl, what you got?" And I'd already finished the car. Like I got it back to brand new. Right, I was looking spiffy. So I didn't want to make it seem like I was holding out on him or nothing. I said,
Hmm.
"So Bob, I talked to an old boy I know out east to get these parts because I know you wanted the original parts. You didn't want aftermarket parts." He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I talked to him and they ran down this car, and it turns out this car was owned by the Elvis Presley." And he mentioned it had gone missing, so I'm thinking whoever sold it to you may not have been supposed to have sold it to you after he died, and I didn't want you to get into trouble or nothing. So they don't know where this car is, but I just want to let you know because I know you're a good guy. You don't want to do anything wrong. I'm sure they'll let you keep the car. I mean, you've had it for 10 years, and he got this weird look on his face, and he sat me down. He said, "Carl, I need to tell you something, but you gotta keep it quiet." So now I'm thinking, oh no, maybe, maybe old Bobby Boy here's got himself a past that maybe he was running drugs or he did steal this car.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe he's not the guy I thought he was, right?
Right.
So that's where my head's at. Because again, it's East Texas. Something we all know some moonshiners. We all got to keep our heads down every once in a while because sheriffs can be
Right.
few and far between sometimes. He said himself, "Carl, I'm Elvis. It's actually my car." Boy, let me tell you what.
He.
My
Wow.
flabber was aghasted, brother. My jaw just about hit the floor. I I was one of those guys who believed, Elvis was still alive. Don't get me wrong, I did. But
Right.
to have someone say, "I'm Elvis," that you've known for 2 years,
Worked with him. Saw him every day. Right. Pretty
every
much.
day, well, except for
Hmm.
Sundays, right? I mean, I
Right.
had to go to church, and we didn't attend the same congregations. I was a Southern Baptist, and he was a little bit on the Pentecostal side,
Right.
and but yeah, like every day, brother, and I didn't know what to do. And I said, "You mean you're the Elvis Presley, the real Elvis Presley?" And he said, "Carl, all I can say is I'm an Elvis,
And Elvis.
an Elvis." I don't know.
Huh.
I couldn't even form the question. What does that mean? Looking back, I wish I'd asked for a little more detail, but I was so shocked by what he was saying. It didn't occur to me that he said, and Elvis. It wasn't until later I was thinking back, but why didn't I ask that question? But here's the thing that shocked me the most. As soon as he said, no, I'm an Elvis, it was like a veil was lifted over my eyes. And I saw his Elvisness. Like, he looked like an Elvis, right? Like, he looked like a guy who was into Elvis. But in that moment, it was like he was transfigured into Elvis.
Like did his clothes change, or like did his
No, no, it was like an aura around him. Like I could feel his Elvisness, right? Like it was not just, like I knew balls to bones, this man was Elvis. And I could feel it. It was like he lit up in a way, not physically, but yeah, I could still see it, right?
right?
It was like in those Santa Claus movies, right? When Santa Claus reveals himself to the kids, everyone's like, oh, "It's the real Santa Claus." That's what it was. It was like the world stopped turning for a minute, and I saw him, like really saw him, and then he was gone. He was
What do you mean by
gone,
gone? He just
gone,
disappeared in front.
just not there anymore, completely gone.
Hmm.
And the car was gone, and no one knew where he went. But he up and sold it, and to a new guy. They asked me to keep it. To keep it, he asked the new owner to keep me on, and he was a good guy. I worked for him for another 5 years before I went on to another body shop. But yeah, no, he just disappeared. I'll be honest. I don't know how long I was there. I don't know how long between when I sat down with him and when it was all over. It felt like it was no time at all, but but honestly, it looked like could have been like a couple hours. And I
So
just
you
don't
had
know what
missing time
happened.
as well.
Well, again, I wasn't looking at a clock when I went to talk to him, but it was daylight, and then it wasn't when everything was
Hmm.
gone. But like he was gone, the car was gone, and that was it. That old Bobby boy was gone, and nobody knew where he went. He just he just left.
Hmm.
I honestly couldn't tell. I couldn't tell anybody for years, and finally, I was like about late '90s, early 2000s. Tried to tell some people
Okay.
about what I saw. Right, went to a couple Bigfoot conventions. Actually, even talked to that old boy that you have come on every once in a while. That ugly guy, Jacob or something.
Oh, you're talking about Jason McLean?
Yeah, that butt
Oh,
wipe.
that guy. Oh.
Yeah, no, I tried talking to him because he was out in Nacogdoches for a while. And
Okay.
like I said, I went to some Bigfoot things and what. Nobody believed me, but he really. I was shocked to find out that you knew him because I tried talking to him back in the early 2000s. He was not having none of it, like not a damn thing. I was shocked some of the
Oh,
words he
he was.
used.
I guess he didn't see your experience as cryptid or Bigfoot enough, so I guess he
No,
kind of.
none of these Bigfoot people do, right? These Bigfoot people, they all talk all high and mighty about going out and getting at the truth, but then you tell them you saw the Elvis, or at least an Elvis, and they just look at you like you're just some nut job fell off the dime turnip truck, and dadgum, it just hurts.
How hypocritical, sir. What a shame. And I am sorry. On behalf of the cryptid community, I do have to apologize on behalf of them because that was not that was not right for you to be treated that way, for you to be cast aside and judged by these Bigfoot nerds. Why?
I,
Because the cryptid you experienced was different from theirs? That's not right. And I'm sorry you had to go through that.
I appreciate you saying that, boy. I really do. Um, it hurt.
Now, were you able to tell, like any friends or family members or
Well, I tried telling my friends, but they all thought I was drunk. And I was married for a while, and after a couple of years of marriage, I tried telling her, and she just thought she laughed at me and thought I was crazy. And
wow.
she ended up taking the double wide. So that's the kind of person she was. Found out she was
Wow.
banging the male guy. I was like shocked because he was ugly as sin. But you know how that goes.
Oh man,
Anyhow,
I'm sorry, guy.
it's okay. It happens, right? I mean, hey, you know what they say out in East Texas, brother. Divorces are hard, but at least you're still cousins, right?
Well, at least you got your kinship there.
Yeah, you never
Blood runs
turn
thicker
your
than
back.
water. Right.
Never turn your back on family.
Right.
Anyway, but no, like I said, it never got remarried because I didn't want to lie, right?
Right.
To know women folk. Had a couple girlfriends, but they all thought I was crazy because I saw that because I said I talked to the Elvis. Said I work for the Elvis, and I'll be honest, I took to drinking pretty hard in the late '90s too.
Oh man.
I
So-
I didn't know what to do. Right? I mean, here's this
right.
guy. I'm just some dumb kid and sees the Elvis, and time goes missing, glowing, all this weird. He's an Elvis. I don't know what to do with it. What's he doing going to Korea? My mind is riddled with mystery, sir. I don't have an answer for it. I'll admit,
Hmm.
became a little obsessed. I'm not, I'm ashamed to say it, but I did some things I'm not proud of trying to figure this out, and I just never could.
Right.
So I'm glad you're here. Maybe you can bring the community together,
Well,
take
Carl,
some of the shade off of it.
Carl, I do feel your pain as a fellow Elvis experiencer myself. I'm sure you've already listened to my encounter stories, and yeah, no, I do feel you on the feelings of. I'm guessing because what I went through when I went through my experiences were feelings of confusion, isolation, right? Feeling like there was no one to talk to.
Yes, yes,
It was not easy,
absolutely.
right? Um, so as you've spent all of these years wrestling with these memories and this encounter and having this experience, have you reached any kind of conclusions or theories or thoughts on what you think the Elvis meant by? Okay, first, when he said "an Elvis," right? Do you think there could be more than one?
So one of those things I said I was not proud of, right,
Right.
during my drinking days. I ran across somebody
Okay.
out in Vegas, and it was an old gal who worked at one of them ranches. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And apparently, she used to work for some of the guys that worked for Elvis back when he was doing his stay in Las Vegas, right?
Right.
They said, or she said that they said that there was more than one Elvis. If there was one Elvis, there was the Elvis, but that he had other forms that he'd take,
Hmm.
other people that were as Elvis, but they were like parts of an Elvis. And I didn't know what she meant, right?
Hmm.
And I was reading a book one time about Santa Claus. I know this is going to sound nuts, but I think it's a good metaphor for what I'm saying. In this story, the Santa Claus, the way he delivered presents to every child on one night, was that Santa Claus would break up into thousands and hundreds of thousands of these different Santa Clauses, and they all took presents to one house. or two houses at a time. So instead of one man
Hmm.
delivering all the presents, it was hundreds of thousands or millions of the one guy all doing it at the same time. And then at the end,
Oh.
they came back and they reformed into the one Santa Claus. Like it's all Santa Claus, but ain't none of them the whole Santa Claus.
You
And
know,
that's
there's
when
a there's a story in Buddhism that's kind of runs along the same lines, going back to the Buddha, and then when they explain it about tulpas, where the Buddha
really,
kind of separated himself into like thousands of versions of himself, and that was supposed to be
I
the
know that.
original. Yeah, that's where the original usage of the word tulpa came from. It's from Tibetan Buddhism, and
Interesting.
that's sounding a lot like that lady in Vegas, the way she described the Elvis. Do you think? I don't know. Do you think that Elvis, Bubba, that you had experienced, do you think that particular version of the Elvis was perhaps a tulpa of the original Elvis?
Brother, I wish I could tell you that's above my pay grade. All I know is
Hmm.
I'm just a putty pig out in Lufkin, Texas, born and raised, and I had a weird encounter. I heard some weird stuff from some weird people, and I don't know what to do with it. But I don't know nothing about no tulpas. All I know is the Santa Claus story that I read sounds an awful lot like what this old gal was saying, and it kind of matched up with what Bob told me when in his office was that he was an Elvis. Like I said, I was so shocked when he was telling me. I never bothered to ask the question what he meant definitely, but it's what he said, and I guess the tulpa thing kind of sounds like it. I don't know. I don't know how a tulpa thing is. I don't know how that works. All I know is what he told me and what she told me and some of the things I've come across. But I'm hoping you're a smarter man than I am because I can't wrap my brain around what I've seen. I'm just trying to stay on the straight and narrow and keep a job right now. To
Right.
be honest, I think it's just too big for me. I'm hoping that you starting this North American Elvis Project and get behind some of this and actually understand it and maybe bring a little closure to this old boy.
Yeah, there needed to be this organization for people like us, Carl, because for far too long, we've just been pushed aside by the cryptid world, right? Because everyone in the whole cryptid field just looks down on us Elvis experiencers and with disdain. They laugh at us, right? We're not
They
even
do.
yeah, we're not even invited to the table. We're not even in the conversation.
Honestly, I think they see us as some kind of a threat. Like maybe somebody told them not to talk to us. I mean, think about all the damn fool things that they talk UFOs and that and Bigfoot teleporting and talking to people
Yeah. They got like
and leaving.
fairies and shit and leprechauns.
Right, fairies and leprechauns and Elvis is not like I'm starting to wonder if maybe somebody didn't go around and tell people you don't talk about the Elvis
Hmm. Maybe.
because that
Maybe.
old boy you hang out with. I'm glad he ain't on this show, or I would have right just told him off. But
Who,
he
Jason?
even Jason,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
that.
he can be a real judgmental prick sometimes. Yeah.
Well, he flat out told me not to talk about this.
Really?
Yeah, like I mean, he used some, I don't mind saying, some rather cross words, some sailor type words, but he told me not to talk about this ever with anyone. I was shocked. I'm like, who in the hell are you to tell me, a full grown man, what I can and cannot talk about, boy? I was right mad, but, to each his own.
Right.
But it feels like maybe somebody's gone around and told people not to talk to us about this. I don't know what that's about, or maybe I'm just seeing things, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know, brother. I'm just glad you're here doing. I hope you stay safe. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I mean, at first when I started this organization, I just wanted a safe space for us to, share data, share our experiences, and avoid the ridicule and the shaming from the Bigfoot and the cryptid communities. But now I'm starting to wonder, maybe the reason why we were pushed out in the beginning, I thought it was because they were ashamed of us or they thought of us as lesser than they were, right? I mean, they think of us lower than flat earthers.
Which
And
hurts. Which
that's
hurts.
yeah, that's like bottom of the barrel. And we're lower than them. They must have like zero opinion. They must have zero respect for us whatsoever. If they're
Don't make
considering
no
us
sense to
lower than
me.
the flat earthers.
Which hurts as a flat earther. I mean, I'm right there with you, bro. I do think the Earth is flat, but we're here to talk about Elvis. So I don't know. I don't know what that's about. All I know is I met an old boy who was an Elvis who loved himself some. You called it kimchi. He liked himself some kimchi, and he drove a pink Cadillac. And I don't understand why that's so hard to believe, but it is. And like I said, it's kind of ruined my life a little bit. I mean, that 12 steps and all, it's on me. I had the power the whole time. I put my faith back in God. I'm trying to do right, but just we gotta figure this out. And I'm right thankful for you. Is what I am. I'm right thankful for you, Donnie.
Well, I appreciate
And
that, Carl. Thank you.
you got yourself a listener in me. I like to listen to you on the interwebs, and I like what you say. I like you joking. Big fan of wrestling too, so I like your shows you do with that old boy Randy. I like him. Uh, but yeah, I like what you're doing, and I really appreciate what you're doing. And when I heard your story, I was like, I gotta call him. I gotta call this old boy. Gotta call him. I'm
Yeah.
glad I did. I'm glad I
And,
did.
and I'm glad you reached out. Now, before we conclude this interview, I do have to ask you one question. With as a man who
Hmm.
has spent some time around the Elvis, who for you at the time was known as Bubba, based off your experiences and everything that you went through and your reflections, the Elvis, what do you think? Is it a physical flesh and blood entity, or is it supernatural, ethereal, interdimensional? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I don't know. That seems to be above my pay grade. But I think whatever Elvis is, I don't think we really grasp what that means.
Right.
I don't think we right understand it. I don't think it's a flesh and blood or a supernatural thing. I think it may be all of the above. Because
Hmm.
the Bubba I talked to, like I said, he loved himself some enchiladas. He loved himself some po' boys. He ate that food in front of me. I even had some
Mm.
leftovers every once in a while because again, I was poor kid, and he was happy to share. He was a good boy, good old man. Shared that kimchi with me and some of the barbecue. He was a good guy. He handled things. I ain't seen no ghost eating and doing things like that. So, but he was definitely more than just a man. Boy, let me tell you what on that. He was definitely more than that. When that veil got pulled back, boy, let me tell you, it was magical.
Hmm.
I don't know if he's a magic man or fairy or but Tulpi or whatever you said. I don't know what he is. All I know is it's beyond me. It's
Right.
beyond this old boy.
Well, Carl, I want to just thank you from the bottom of my heart for reaching out to me and for having the courage to step forward and sharing your story with the world. These stories are important, and what you're doing is important. And I want to commend you for your courage and your honesty. Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you, boy. Thank you.
And before I let you go, do you have any final words or remarks for anyone out there listening who may be, I don't know, struggling with their own Elvis sighting, or for anyone who might be listening who hasn't had a sighting, who might be part of the cryptid community? Do you have any messages for them?
Well, all I can say is if you're out there and you're hearing my voice and you are an experiencer, get in touch with this old boy Donny Cho right here. He's he's a good man. He's a good man, and we need to know what this is. I need some closure on this. You all out there, you need some closure on this. I don't know if we'll understand in our lifetimes, but maybe this old boy right here is gonna lead us to something real, something that will help us understand what we've all encountered.
Right.
And if you hadn't, if you hadn't had an encounter with the Elvis, just keep your mind open. You don't know what's out there.
Right.
This world, this world is absolutely weird, man, brother. Let me tell you, I've seen some weirder stuff than that. But but Elvis was the one that really shook me deep. Y'all need to be open because he's still out there, and if he's out there, he's doing something. I don't know what that something is, but he's doing something. And that old, and you can tell your friend that Jason McLean, he can kiss my ass.
Yeah, that guy's a prick. Okay. So, for folks like Jason McLean out there and other Bigfoot and Dogman nerds who might be listening, who may have encountered a person like Carl, just know that what you're doing is very hypocritical. You're not helping the movement towards truth, and you need to learn to open your minds and be more accepting of people like Carl here, who's who's had a very real, profound personal experience with the Elvis. So hopefully, Carl, I think we've this conversation has helped open some minds. I think hopefully we will establish ourselves more in this whole cryptozoological world, and more researchers will get involved, more experiences will come out, and hopefully we'll get to that truth. And I think you calling in was the first step in that direction. So I wanted to thank you.
Again, I thank you.
All
Thank you
right.
very much.
Well, folks, I think that's it for our little interview. Just know that if you yourself have had an encounter with the Elvis, please reach out to me. Um, there are more people like Carl out there, and there will be, we will continue with the good fight, the North American Elvis Project. Hopefully, you'll see our names up there with the rest of the big names in the cryptid world. So with that, I think we will give this one a close, and I bid you all adieu. Peace out.